Wow, what an incredible sight. Good morning. My name is Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson, and it's my great honor and privilege to welcome you to the People's House on behalf of the great state of Utah and on behalf of our wonderful governor, Governor Spencer J. Cox. Welcome to the Utah Capitol building. We're excited for you to join us today as we recognize and kick off the month of September as American Founders and Constitution Month. This is a really incredible opportunity for us to pay tribute to our founding fathers and our founding document of our great nation. And I just have to say, on a personal note, Constitution Day is a very special day for me. Because I love the Constitution, but also because my favorite son was born on Constitution Day, September 17th, 1998. So he's going to be 25 and he's my only son, just in case anyone's worried that I play too many favorites with my kids. We would like to extend a special welcome to the many government, religious, and community leaders who are with us today, especially Governor Spencer Cox, Rob Swenson and his 120-voice choir from American Heritage School in American Fork, students and families from various schools and communities, and many of the great foundations that are here today that help foster patriotism. We're going to proceed with the programs. You can refer to your programs, but we will proceed in the following order. First, we'll hear from Jenny Taylor, founder of the Major Brent Taylor Foundation. She will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we will hear from the American Heritage School Choir. They will sing a song for us directed by Ron Swenson. Following that musical number, Reverend Lisa Petty from Christ United Methodist Church will lead us in prayer, followed by Jen Brown, president of the Why I Love America organization. She will address us. And then we will hear from our governor, Spencer Cox, who will issue a proclamation for American Founders and Constitution Month. And then he will be followed by the singing of the American Anthem by the American Heritage School Choir, and we will go to that point. Jenny.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the national anthem.
Who
If that does not bring a tear to your eye, I do not know what will. Thank you. Thank you. I'd ask that you be in whatever posture of prayer looks like for you. Holy One, lover of all that is created, we gather as people thankful for the freedoms we are afforded here, for the wisdom of our founders and their words that have shaped not only the foundation of our nation, but our present reality. May we remember them with reverence and gladness, but not too high a veneration that would lead us to forget their humanity. Humanity that overlooked the anguish or torment of cultures and people that were not given the equality nor rights of others. Allow us to both give thanks for the past and be prompted forward to evoke change for the future. Giver of life, we gather as people of the great state of Utah, recognizing the land we inhabit was once part of nations not our own, the Ute, Paiute, Goshute, Dene, Navajo, and Shoshone. Land which we now inhabit reminds us of the work we still have to do each day to forge friendships, relationships, and sacrifices for their immeasurable contributions to our state. May we remember to build figurative bridges to healthy compromises that seek to make whole those who have had histories different than our own, that our joint histories would be passed down through generations instead of whitewashed to be the history of the victor's voice only. Allow us to both give thanks for our siblings of joint nationalities and be moved to compassionate acts of learning. Abba, Father, Adonai, God, Creator, Holy Mystery, and Universal Truth Teller, by whatever name we address you, or no name at all, may we find favor in your sight by the ways we look to the past to make a better future. For it is by the thread of unity and love that this nation will not only survive, but thrive. In the name of all that is holy and redeeming, amen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jen Brown. I'm president of the Why I Love America organization, and I'm so grateful for each of you being here today. I would like to talk just a little bit about the Constitution and what makes it so remarkable. If you were asked the question, what's the genius of the Constitution? Why has it changed the world? Would you be able to answer that question? You will after today. A lot of people do not realize that after the Revolutionary War, America almost failed. The central government was so weak that it could not connect the states into a functional government. But the founders had just fought a very costly war, and they were about going to let all power conglomerate at the federal level. So the question was, what's the solution? What do we do? The answer was dual sovereignty. The federal government is given specific responsibilities as found in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, and everything else was reserved to the states. So by design, most decisions being made should be done at the state level. My sister just recently told me that at the hospital she works at, they were given a new manager, but the manager works in a different hospital. And her and I were saying, that is ridiculous. How can you have someone manage that's not with you? And I couldn't but help think in that moment, there's a constitutional lesson in this. That is the genius of the Constitution, is that we know how to best govern ourselves here in the state of Utah. And if you look around just here today at all the people, we have so many talented, creative people that we know best how to run our healthcare, our education, and so forth. And most importantly, we know best how to protect the rising generation in the state of Utah so that they can reach their potential. So thank you so much again for coming today, and I hope that everyone will take a little bit of time to look at these amazing artifacts that have been brought in. And our next big event will be an interfaith devotional on September 17th at the Layton Christian Center. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen, for those inspiring words. Ladies and gentlemen, it is such an honor to be here with you today. This is indeed an incredible sight, and the sight here is only matched and maybe surpassed by the sight here. I'm so grateful to these young people for sharing their talents and their voices with us. I felt chills as we together we pronounced these words, honoring our flag and hearing us unified in one voice, different people, but our voices combining, saying the same things in the same rhythm. And you felt that power in those words as we pledged allegiance to this sacred symbol. And then when you add the power of music behind that, it did bring a tear to my eye, and I'm grateful for the passion that we all feel for our country today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate this incredible document, this Constitution, and I'm gonna start by reading the official proclamation, and then I'll share a few words with you, if that's okay. I'm so excited for House Bill 179, by the way, and to everyone that worked on that helped make this possible. Here's the official declaration. Whereas America's constitutional form of government is exceptional and uniquely changed the course of history for the entire world. Whereas it is essential that the rising generation and citizens of all ages understand our history and form of government so it can be honored and perpetuated. Whereas America is founded on moral principles, including the sovereignty of the people and the belief that all people are created equal and have unalienable rights bestowed upon them by their Creator. Whereas the genius of the Constitution is its ability to decentralize power between the state and federal governments, known as federalism. Whereas all civic, fraternal, and religious organizations and public and private educational institutions have been encouraged to recognize and observe September as American Founders and Constitution Month via House Bill 179. Whereas House Bill 179 invites all Utah school children to read directly from the United States Constitution and other primary sources, with a special focus on Constitution Day, September 17th, and to be taught principles from the United States Constitution. Whereas we are a nation under God, as evidenced by our Pledge of Allegiance, and a nation that puts its trust in God, as evidenced by our national motto, and many individuals acknowledge and show gratitude to God for His role in our nation's origin and destiny. And whereas we show a spirit of patriotism for our nation and state by flying our national flag, engaging in other patriotic activities, and educating ourselves about the U.S. Constitution. Now, therefore, I, Spencer J. Cox, Governor of the State of Utah, do hereby declare September 2023 as American Founders and Constitution Month in Utah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if I might just share just a few thoughts as I've been reflecting on this important occasion this month and this incredible document. You heard me touch a little bit already on another important document that I think is foundational, and that is the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence sets forth the principles on which our nation is based. The Constitution then takes that declaration and embodies it in a practical way to govern our country. And that's why I don't think you can have one of those documents without the other. But this profound idea, this radical idea that our nation is founded on, this idea unique in the course of history, that we, all of us, are endowed by our Creator, by God, with certain unalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that we are created equal. And again, we the people hold that power, not government. Throughout history, every civilization assumed that government held the power and decided what our rights were. But we said, no, that is not true. We've had it wrong all these years. We the people are born with those rights. They come to us. Government is then formed to protect those rights, not the other way around. And that idea changed everything. And then we figured out, well, a Declaration of Independence is awesome, but we can't really govern a country with it. And so, again, brilliant men and women came together with these ideas, these profound ideas, I believe inspired ideas, that eventually gave us the Constitution. But here's the thing. They understood, and as much as we venerate them, and we should, that they were not perfect. They were flawed individuals, and they knew that all humans were flawed. They knew that we would be flawed in the future. In fact, they knew they had some really serious problems to deal with that they weren't ready to deal with yet as a country. And so what they did was they put these aspirations in this document, knowing that it would help hold us accountable through generations of time. And here we are over 200 years later, again, using that same Constitution, those very same words, to hold each other accountable, responsible, and to protect those rights. Now, but I will say, the genius of the Constitution is also how short it is. You should not be able to govern over 300 million people with a document that short. But they understood something, that America and our pluralistic society with all of the differences would never work if we were not a good and decent and moral people. That you could never write enough laws to govern all of mankind. That we would have to self-govern, that we would have to build institutions to govern ourselves, including religious institutions, volunteer institutions. That's what Alexis de Tocqueville saw when he came here that was so different than anything in Europe. He said, these Americans, they form these institutions to hold each other accountable and to make each other better. I just want to share a couple words here. And John Adams said this: without the great political virtues of humility, patience, and moderation, every one of us becomes a ravenous beast of prey. I want to repeat those. Humility, patience, and moderation. Without those three things, we all become ravenous beasts of prey. James Madison and Alexander Hamilton praised the Constitution's spirit of moderation in contrast to the intolerant spirit of those who are ever so much persuaded of their being in the right in every controversy. But of course, it was George Washington who constantly warned of the dangers and divisions that could tear us apart. He called them factions. Today, we would call this extreme partisanship. He spent a significant amount of time warning future generations, warning all of us 247 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, that the only way this great nation could fall is the very toxic partisanship that we are experiencing today, driven by conspiring people that tend to render, as he said, alien to each other those who ought to be bound together by fraternal affection. Now, I want to conclude with this. I turned 48 in July. But I have to go back to when I was 8 years old. When I was 8 years old, my parents took me to Washington, D.C. My uncle lived there. He worked for the federal government. We went and toured all the monuments, and we went to Monticello, to Thomas Jefferson's home. And they bought me a book, and the book was titled My First Book on Thomas Jefferson. Not a very clever title, but it was true. It was my first book about Thomas Jefferson, and I read it multiple times, and I fell in love with Thomas Jefferson. Now, he was over in France, France when the Constitution was being debated and written, but he did write the Declaration of Independence. That's when I fell in love with these founding documents. For my 48th birthday, we had meetings in New Jersey, and not my favorite place, but we had a couple days before those meetings, and my wife said, "Is there anything you would want to do?" And I said, "I want to go to Philadelphia, someplace I had never been before." I said, "I want to go into that room where the Constitution was debated, where these brilliant people came together to enact this world-changing document." And as I walked into that room, I saw something I had only heard about, but I had forgotten about. Some of you know what it is. It was a chair. It was a chair in which George Washington sat every day as he presided over the discourse and over the debate on the Constitution. Now, as I looked at that chair, I got emotional. And some of you have heard this before, but it was Benjamin Franklin, who was aged at this time, sitting in the back, and he said at the conclusion of the debate that every day he looked at that chair that George Washington sat in. And engraven on the back of that chair is a sun, or at least half a sun. And he said this: "I have often looked at that picture behind the president without being able to tell whether it was a rising or setting sun. But now at length, I have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun." Ladies and gentlemen, there is increasing evidence that the sun is setting in our country today. But that is not written in the stars. We have the ability, each of us as Americans, to decide whether that sun is setting or that sun is rising. I believe in this room today, this room is filled with sunrisers, not sunsetters. Studying this document with our children, helping them understand the history of this great nation. Yes, the flaws, but also our ability to overcome those flaws because of the wisdom that exists in these documents is what makes this sun a rising sun. My prayer today is that all of us will commit to being sunrisers, to making sure that we are doing our part to make sure that the greatest nation in the history of the world continues to be the greatest nation in the history of the world. And may God bless you in this critical work. Thank you.
Shall
That's the future. I see great hope in those faces. Thank you. We will now hear from the following speakers in this order. Representative Doug Owens, Utah State Legislator representing House District 33. Dr. Sydnee Dickson, State Superintendent of Public Instruction with the Utah State Board of Education. Governor Gary Herbert, our beloved former governor, 17th governor of the great state of Utah, and I might add, 6th lieutenant governor of the state of Utah. Then Tad Callister will speak. He's the chairman of Constitution Month for Why I Love America. And then we will end with a final number by the American Heritage School Choir. Now, I just want to bring to your attention, there are cookies available afterward, artifacts throughout the building that are here on display from the Ron Fox and Brent Ashworth collections. We thank them for their generous sharing of those artifacts with us. And there will be Capitol tours that will be provided. Please look for the legislators and the volunteers who are holding up the tour signs. And thank you once again for being here. Representative Owens.
Thank you to that amazing choir. You guys are amazing. Thank you. It's wonderful to see so many people here today to honor the Constitution. I want to speak especially to the students who are here today. There's a saying that if you are American, you won the jackpot. I have to agree, and one big reason is that we are governed by the Constitution. Most people in the history of the world have lived without the protection of a Constitution. Most people who ever lived on this planet and who are still living have been subject to violence perpetrated by kings and dictators and emperors and thugs of all kinds who get power and stop at nothing to keep themselves in power. Most of the people who've ever lived didn't have the opportunity to worship God as they chose, or speak out against wrong, or be secure in their property and privacy. The founders of our country set up the Constitution to protect us from tyrants who want to deprive us of those basic rights. They split up power between the branches of government. The legislature makes the laws, the executive enforces the laws, and the courts make sure the laws are valid and fairly enforced. Power is split up in other ways, too. The Constitution splits up power between the federal government in Washington and the states. The Constitution also says there are certain powers the government can never have. It can't try you without a jury, or take away your vote, or search your house without a judge approving it, or stop you from expressing an opinion. Even though we have the Constitution, we need to elect leaders who will follow it. Sometimes we haven't always done that. There have been times when parts of the Constitution were ignored. Many of us here today are descended from people who had to leave the United States and come to Utah territory to have the freedom of religion, because the United States was not protecting their freedom of religion. All of us should work to make sure the Constitution and its wonderful promises are put into effect for everyone in our country, and not just some of us. There is still danger of losing constitutional liberties. That's most likely to happen when we get angry with each other. That's what happened to our ancestors. People got angry with them and drove them out. Remember, when someone disagrees with you, instead of getting angry, we should try to understand their point of view. And that can help you find better solutions. Don't waste your time listening to people who try to get you to be mad at other people. It's better to listen to people who help you understand your own viewpoints and other viewpoints. We feel strongly about our opinions, but we always act with respect. The Constitution isn't like a magic wand. It's never enough to just wave a copy of it. We have to study it and live by what's in it. I hope everyone will study the Constitution and the history of this great nation. That will enable us to choose good leaders and become good leaders ourselves. I want to echo what the choir just sang so beautifully. Let it be said of us that we gave America our very best. Thank you.
Good morning. It's such an honor to be here with you today. I have such gratitude in my heart for this occasion and such emotion in my soul. I don't think I've ever heard a more beautiful rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. So I'm going to read my remarks to try and keep those emotions in check. I love this building. I love it so much. I love being here because it really embodies the very principles that our nation was founded on almost 250 years ago. And I'm so excited that we're celebrating and trying to understand better and cherish the ideas and principles of the founding of our nation. As part of this celebration, I'm really proud to introduce the Constitution Fitness Award Program. It's an initiative that encourages the students of Utah to engage with the Constitution on a deeper level. The program is built around two fundamental questions that guide students on a journey of self-discovery. The first question is, why do we respect and value the Constitution of the United States of America? And what are our civic responsibilities as citizens of this great nation? These questions are not mere inquiries, they are invitations to students to reflect on their role in upholding the values that make America the land of the free and the home of the brave. The program isn't simply theoretical discussions. It's about action. It's about engagement. It provides students, along with their educational partners, their educators, their families, with a plethora of ideas and activities to explore during Founders Month and Constitution Day. These activities are not meant to be confined to the classroom. They expand to the home as well. By participating, students not only learn about the founding of the United States and the development of the Constitution, they also gain a clearer understanding of what these events mean to them personally. Moreover, the Constitution Fitness Award Program is designed in a way that it aligns with the Utah State Board of Education elementary social studies standards, ensuring that learning about the Constitution is seamlessly integrated into the academic school year. And here's the exciting part. Every year, students will have the opportunity to earn a Constitution Fitness Award certificate by completing 6 items from a list of learning experiences and activities. And I just looked through all of these lists, and I think I need these merit badges. I need this fitness award. They're pretty exciting activities. Each grade level, kindergarten through 5th grade, has its own list of civically engaging activities that correspond to the standards for that grade level. For example, kindergartners could check off one of 6 items on their list by drawing a picture of something in their community that they're grateful for, or by memorizing and performing the Pledge of Allegiance. And 5th graders could check off one of their 6 items on the list by memorizing the 7 articles of the United States Constitution and then summarizing the importance of these 7 articles. Imagine the pride, excuse me. Imagine the pride students will feel collecting 6 certificates throughout their elementary years, each one a testament to their dedication to understanding and preserving the principles that shape our nation. To facilitate this incredible journey of discovery and learning about the Constitution, the program materials, the tracking sheets, and certificates are already now accessible through the UEN Constitution eMedia Hub, an entire section of UEN dedicated to this endeavor. This resource will be a valuable asset for all who seek to deepen their connection with the Constitution. So you don't have to be kindergarten through 5th grade to access these materials and deepen your engagement with the Constitution. I too, like Governor Cox just described his experience in Philadelphia, had my own experience. Many years ago, I was with a group of educators, and I had this experience to be at the Constitution Center in an evening. It was closed down to the public, and I wandered into a room. I was there alone, and here were these bronze statues, life-size statues of the founders of this great document. And as I wandered among them, I stood by each statue, by this great founder, and wondered what they were thinking. What must it have been like for them to wrangle over ideas and thoughts and come together to make this great document that would govern our nation for so many years to come? It was an inspiring experience, and I'm excited about this Fitness Award because our students may not be wandering among bronze statues, but they get to interact with the principles that these great founders worked so hard to come together on. So when we leave here today, Let us not forget that the future of our constitutional republic has always depended on the proper education of our children and on our instilling in them a love of country and a sense of civic responsibility. Let us work together to empower our students to become not just scholars, but stewards of our Constitution, a Constitution that unites us, propels us forward, and reminds us that the promise of America has always rested in the hands of each new generation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here with all of you here today. And as a former governor, I'm honored to be anywhere. So I appreciate the sentiment. I want to say amen to all that's been said already. I'm inspired by seeing the audience here, particularly our young people, the flags that we're waving. And it gives me confidence and hope in the future. We have some difficult times that we're facing, but I'm optimistic about the future based on what I see here tonight, or this morning. It's been 236 years since the Constitution was ratified and approved. A lot has happened in that time frame. I'll just quote George Washington, who talks about the Constitution, said, "The Constitution is the guide which I will never abandon." James Madison said, "The happy union of these states is a wonder. Their Constitution is a miracle. Their example, the hope of liberty throughout the world." Ronald Reagan talked about us being the shining city on the hill. Abraham Lincoln talked about America being the best hope of the earth. I think Utah is a good example to the rest of the country of how to do it correctly and do it right. I thank our legislators, Governor Cox and others, our local elected officials, for keeping in mind the Constitution and the things that they're doing at the local level. It probably helps to remind us that we had the Articles of Confederation, which were approved in 1781. It became soon known that they were unworkable. George Washington couldn't pay the troops. We had different commerce laws in each of the states. Things were not working very well, a lot of confusion taking place. In fact, George Washington said the new system they had there with the Articles of Confederation was a shadow without substance. So all 13 states were invited to come together in Philadelphia in 1787 and send your delegates. And we'll see what we can do to work on improving the Articles of Confederation. The states were worried that they were going to be dissolved and they would lose power to a stronger, more centralized federal government, and that caused them a lot of concerns, wondering what is the proper role for the states to be in this concept of partnership and balance, which we call federalism. Well, Alexander Hamilton talked about in his Federalist, the first one, about the importance of this gathering, this Constitution, what it meant to so many people. He said not only it was nothing less than the existence of the Union. Without this, we're not going to have a union. We're not going to have a country. He went on to say, "It has been frequently remarked that it seems to have been reserved to the people of this country by their conduct and example to decide the important question whether societies of men are really capable or not of establishing good government from reflection and choice, or whether they are forever destined to depend upon their political constitutions on accident and force," of which we have mostly, that's history. Accident and force to create a country and put somebody in charge to run it in a dictatorial fashion. So going to Philadelphia, the states were concerned about their role. James Madison, in discussing this very issue in Federalist 45, my good friend Ken Ivory, who's been a leading champion in the legislature to push this thought that we are forgetting. The states were worried, and James Madison said not to worry. This new Constitution puts this centralized government in a box. And he went on to say that the power that we've given to the federal government are few and defined. Those powers are few and defined. That is Article 1, Section 8 of our Constitution. They're defined. The powers we've given to the states, though, are numerous and indefinite. That was the promise of the Constitution, and that's the instructions that James Madison gave to us. Part of the genius of the Constitution, we understand the separation of the powers, but the genius, again speaking as a former governor, maybe I'm a little biased, but the genius was the separation of sovereignty between the states and the central government. It was a check and balance. We call it federalism. The role of the states, we didn't have them have all power. We didn't have the federal government have all power. It was divided sovereignty, which was unique and still is unique, one of the geniuses of our Constitution. We've, in my opinion, and I'll back it up with some facts, have lost that counsel that James Madison told us about the roles of the federal government, where they have few and defined powers, but the states have numerous and indefinite. And what has happened with that is the lack of ability for us, the people, the sovereigns. It is all about we, the people, to have influence back in Washington, D.C. We're too far removed from what they're doing there. And I think we as a people are looking too much to Washington, D.C. to solve whatever the ills or societal problems that we have are. Washington, D.C. proves to be more expensive and less effective in whatever the services they're trying to provide. Again, 435 representatives, 100 senators living far away from our backyards. The states have been referred to by Judge Brandeis of the Supreme Court as laboratories of democracy, which means they're little pilot programs where they have the ability to go out and experiment and try different ideas to do whatever the role of the government should be in our lives to help. And with these little pilot programs, we can learn as a state from others. We can learn from them, we can modify, we can improve, or we can reject. As opposed to, we all understand the Washington, D.C.'s approach is a one-size-fits-all. And sometimes that one size works for a few, but not for the many. But we're all kind of caught in that same role of putting and implementing whatever Washington, D.C. says. So the pilot program, the Laboratories of Democracy, is really an important aspect that was created in the Constitution. Let me just give you an interesting data point before I wrap up here. We all know about the debt. It's in the news, the rising debt. I don't know if we know how much it is, but the national debt today is $32.8 trillion. Now, trillion just rolls off the tongue, but that's 1,000 billion. $32.8 trillion and growing at about $1.7 billion additional every year. The federal government spends that much more than it takes in revenue, and we wonder why we had about 50% of our GDP was debt. In 2000, today it's 126% of GDP. It's not sustainable. Here's an interesting factoid too. Again, keep in mind the power of the states are numerous and indefinite. Federal government, few and defined. The combined spending of the budgets, adding Utah into it and all the other 49 states, is about $2.2 trillion. That's the combined spending of all combined. The federal government today is spending $6.4 trillion. Nearly 3 times more money being spent in Washington than the combined effort of the states, who should have had a premier role in what we do in government. That's something that's not sustainable. And we see the results of that with inflation, cost of money is going up, interest rates going up, and the ills that we see facing because we are not balancing our budget. We all know, and the state of Utah, to our great credit, doesn't spend more than it takes in, saves for a rainy day, doesn't have unreasonable debt, and again runs our state government like we should be running our households and our businesses. In conclusion, let me just say this. I believe in the states. I believe we as a people should be looking more to the states and to our local government for the services that we need to render. We have the 10th Amendment, which says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectfully or to the people. What that means is simply this. The federal government only has powers delegated in the Constitution. If it isn't listed, it belongs to the states and to the people. Otherwise, they don't have the right to intercede. Again, as we, the people, are asking too much from the federal government, we need to, in fact, look more to our local leaders to see what we need to do and what we can do in the private sector to alleviate pain and suffering, and with private contributions and help, which we see from our churches and civic organizations throughout our state, throughout the country. I'll just conclude by saying, Spencer Cox talked about Benjamin Franklin, and he saw the rising sun on the chair of George Washington. When he left that conference there and they had the Constitution put together, we all know the story of the lady that ran up to Dr. Franklin. Dr. Franklin, what kind of a government have you given us? And he said, it's a republic. It's a republic if you can keep it. I remember growing up and thinking, why wouldn't we not want to keep it? How would we lose it? We lose it because of inaction, apathy, not being engaged. My plea for all of us, including Gary Herbert, is to be actively engaged to make sure we protect our republic, protect this bastion of freedom, which is an example to the world, that we have liberty and freedom here we take for granted, coupled with individual responsibility, which is our job, so we can continue to spread this great idea of freedom and liberty, celebrating our Constitution, lifting our flags high, and thanking God for what He's given us here in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, former Governor Herbert. I've been touched by the stirring music and messages that have been given, but most of all by the wonderful patriots who are here today. I think it was Barbara Bush who said, what's most important is not what happens in the White House, but what happens in your house. And I think what's most important is what now happens in our homes and in our circle of friends. Well, Why I Love America is a nonprofit organization which is in full support of the legislature's designation of September as American Founders and Constitution Month. As part of that legislation, the state has encouraged all civic, fraternal, and religious organizations to engage in patriotic events, and all Utah citizens and students to read the Constitution so that we can become a more informed electorate. Well, in support of this effort, Why I Love America has three main goals. One is to restore patriotism, which is declining in America. Some of you may have seen a recent Wall Street Journal, which said that in 1998, 70% of the population of America believed that patriotism was of high priority in their lives. You know what that figure was this year? 38%. We can help make a difference in restoring patriotism in this great country. Secondly, we ought to help educate all Utah citizens and students on the Constitution so they can make better informed decisions on pending legislation and electing wise and good candidates to office. In fact, one survey said that 1 in 1,000 people in the U.S. can name the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. Can you? If you can, I'll treat you to a free cookie after this press conference is over. And third goal is that we can increase our awareness of God's hand in America as clearly recognized by the Founding Fathers. As evidence of this, we began this press conference today with prayer. Legislative sessions in this building begin with prayer. We pledged allegiance to one nation under God. We heard the Star-Spangled Banner sang, which recognizes God's hand in preserving this nation. And we all have in our wallets the motto of this country, "In God we trust." God's fingerprints are everywhere to be found in this nation's history. Accordingly, in this spirit, we would suggest 4 things that you might do as a family and individual to celebrate American Founders and Constitution Month. 1, we'd encourage you to fly the American flag as evidence of your love and appreciation for America, its founding fathers, and our God-given liberties. Secondly, we'd encourage you to read and study the Constitution and discuss it with your family and friends so they can be better informed on legislative matters and candidates for office. To assist you in this, you will find on your seats Why I Love America booklet that explains much about the Constitution that's been discussed today and will help us gain an even greater love and understanding of this sacred document. Third, we'd invite you to join groups and attend patriotic events which foster these ideals. To help you in this endeavor, we have inserted in this booklet a list of patriotic events that will be taking place during the month of September. And fourth, we hope all will pray to God to express appreciation for His hand in America and for His hand to be in our future destiny. In conclusion, may we, the people, stand up for the Constitution and defend it. If we do, then we will be entitled to the blessing of the Old Testament psalmist who said, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." If we do, then we will be entitled to Paul's declaration, "Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty." And if we do, we will be entitled to this promise of latter-day Scripture: "This is a choice land, and whatsoever nation shall possess it shall be free from bondage and captivity, and all other nations in their heaven, if they will but serve the God of the land, who is Jesus Christ." May we so serve our God, and thus be a nation under God, I pray. Thank you.